Hi, did you know it's springtime in Missouri? Yes, it's a wonderful time of year that happens every year where I get horrible allergies. I don't know what's special about today, but I woke up this morning and my face was just being attacked by tree pollen. I get terrible allergy symptoms every year around this time, and well, this year is no different. Man, this morning was just so bad. I wouldn't quite call it miserable, what I was experiencing, but I was very unpleasant for sure. Now, if I were to mow the yard or do something outside for any long period of time without a respirator, then yeah, that would be miserable. Anyway, I'm feeling a little bit better now because I took some allergy medicine, but now I'm quite drowsy, so I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be getting much or anything physical work-wise done today. But anyway, this morning I wasn't feeling very good and I wanted to do something productive. So I made a trip to town and went to some stores. I got some essentials, but I also got myself a toy. Well, a tool, but you know, a toy for me. Anyway, real quick. Yesterday I mentioned H-Day. I'll unbox this while I'm talking. Yesterday I mentioned H-Day, the day in Sweden where the entire country decided to change the side of the road they drive on, which made sense because apparently 90% of the cars on the road at that time, this was in 1967, 90% of the cars on the road were already left-hand drive cars. So it only made sense that they switched the side of the road they were driving on, and all the neighboring countries drove on the other side of the road anyway, so transition makes sense. What I found interesting was this morning, I woke up to a comment about H-Day from a guy who had a Swedish-looking name. What he said was they did the H-Day transition in stages. The first week they transitioned buses, the second week they transitioned trucks, and the third week they transitioned cars. Well, no, because how would you do that? That's not what happened, but how would you do that? How would you have a week where cars drive on the left side of the road and trucks drive on the right? It's not, it has to be done in a day. So unless I was mistakenly reading his comment, no. Maybe he meant like bus stops were transitioned to the other side of the road in the weeks prior. I don't know. I just think he's a goof. Maybe he did that on purpose. By the way, this is what I got. Look at it. It's a Ryobi caulk gun. No, this is not at all necessary. I did not need this tool, but it was cheap, and I'm going to use a lot of urethane construction adhesive to put the bus together. Yes, that's right. I've been listening to your comments. I'm going to use a combination of VHB and urethane construction adhesive. It's like the combination in woodworking. Sometimes people will use a mixture of super glue and wood glue. And the super glue provides an instant bond so that it can clamp the two pieces together while the wood glue dries. And the wood glue is the more of the permanent bond. That's kind of the case with a combination of VHB and urethane construction adhesive. I can mix the two. The VHB will provide an immediate bond to clamp it down, and the urethane, well, it will also be a permanent bond, the VHB, but the urethane construction adhesive will be a permanent bond that sort of, it doesn't really need a clamp to hold it down, but this will act as a clamp to hold this down while this dries, and it'll be a stronger bond than the VHB. Possibly. Or maybe they're the same over time. I don't really know. Anyway, I have both of them now, and I have an a motorized caulk gun for squeezing out my caulk tubes. Let me go get a battery. I swear, Ryobi makes so many seemingly useless but very cool tools. Now how do does this just pull back? But how do I pull it back? Oh, you just pull it back. Oh, well, that was easy. Now, for me, this was a silly purchase. I had no reason to buy this other than I thought it was neat and it might be slightly better than squeezing a caulk trigger. But this could be a legitimately useful tool for someone who has arthritis or something and still wants to use a caulk gun. I don't know, I'm kind of stretching it a little bit, but whatever. I got it and I think it's cool. Turn the trigger off. I'm going to be using this a lot on the bus and everywhere else I use a caulk gun. I surprisingly use a caulk gun fairly often. Anyway, there's that. Let's talk about the WeGo real quick. A lot of you, rightly so, pointed out that I should take this battery pack out of this car as soon as possible to top up all of these cells in here, or to try to give it a charge, because the longer these cells sit discharged, the more likely it is that they will be dead forever. And this is a thought that I had when I was messing with the Wego, that I need to get to this as soon as possible. But the problem with that is, as it sits right now, I have no way to charge up these individual cells. I ordered a DC power supply yesterday, not a balance charger for lithium cells, but a DC power supply, so that I can have fine control over charging these things. But due to the current situation, that thing's not going to get here till like the middle of May. So I could drop the battery pack now, but then I'd have no way to charge the cells. I could theoretically use my battery charger. It does have a LiFePO 4 setting on it, but these cells are so highly discharged that I want to trickle charge them to give them every chance of survival that they can have. So I could drop the daily video thing and start tackling this, but there's kind of no point. I'm just gonna wait. And they've been discharged for a couple of months anyway, not as discharged as they are now, but they've been discharged for a couple of months anyway, so I don't think waiting another couple of weeks is going to hurt them much more. Yeah, I know, it's not ideal, but there was some other stuff off Amazon that I tried to order. It's just not going to be here very soon. So I'm glad that I spent a bunch of time beforehand stocking up on materials for the bus. But anyway, that's I wanted to tell you that I'm not going to tackle the Wego immediately because of that. Also, I'd have to drop the whole daily video thing to start tackling this thing. I don't want this to end right now. If I'm not going to be working on the bus, I can at least talk about it a little bit and talk about some plans and some unanswered questions from you. Chief amongst which is, what am I going to do with this car hauler section here? Well, truth be told, I'm not sure yet. With everything else I think of, big picture-wise, I'll go through options in my head, and then there'll be an idea that sticks, and I think, yes, that's the route I'm going to take. It may not be the best route, but it's the one that sticks in my head as, yes, that's what I'm going to do. But I haven't had that sort of clicking moment with the car hauler section. I've had lots of ideas what to do back here with long ramps or a rollback bed or some sort of complex lift mechanism, but none of the things I've thought of have really clicked. None of them have really stuck with me. I think I'm looking for a very simple solution that also works very well, and I don't think anything that I can do with the back of this is going to be very simple, unless I just have a ramp back on here and then a forklift outside of the car, outside of the truck to load cars up in the back. So I'm not 100% sure. By 100%, I mean I'm not even close to sure what I'm going to do with the back of this bus yet. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but that's why I'm tackling the living quarters first. Well, one, so I can drive it on the road, but also so I can leave more time to think about what to do back here. Again, lots of ideas floating around in my head, don't know which one I'm going to stick with. Another question I've received about the bus fairly often is, how are you going to charge the cabin batteries, whether they be Nissan Leaf batteries or the batteries out of the Wego, whatever they are, how are you going to charge them? Well, I plan to use a combination of solar power on the roof, although the roof space is kind of limited because I shrunk the bus down a little bit. I also plan to, that wasn't a very well-flowing sentence. Anyway, I also plan to use to bolt on an extra alternator on the bus engine at some point, because the bus engine's already there. I might as well use it to in part charge the cabin batteries. So that's really it. I don't want to rely on an external generator, and I don't want to rely on shore power. I want to be pretty independent, and I think a combination of solar and an extra alternator will do that just fine. So this entry door here, this isn't a question that anybody asked, but it was a thought process that I had. When I was thinking about this bus in my head, I wanted to close off this entire staircase here, put a door that starts right about here in, and then have, whenever the door opens, have a stair set that folds out. And the reason I wanted to do this was so you could have a passenger seat here and just regain a little tiny bit of extra floor space. But that's one of those plans that didn't come to fruition because paper versus reality is a thing. And the reason I can't do that is because I didn't raise this section, so if I were to put a door here, then, you know, I'd have to duck way down to go out the door. So I'm going to leave this staircase intact. Unfortunately, I do plan to put a passenger seat here, but it's going to have a fold-down footwell or something if I want a footrest in it. Anyway, that's one of those plans that kind of turned out disappointingly. Speaking of plans, I have drawn up a rough floor plan for what I want the living quarters to be, how I want them to be laid out. But I'm leaving it as a rough floor plan because things change when they transition from paper to reality. So I'll show it up on the screen right now. I have the bedroom in the back. I've got a bathroom, full bathroom with a shower and toilet and everything in front of that on one side, and in front of the bathroom is the kitchen. That allows all the plumbing to be on one side of the bus, and then the opposite side of the bus I've got a sofa/dinette area, sort of a lounge area, and behind that is kind of unknown space. I don't know if I'm going to have enough room for maybe a small closet or just leave it open as a walkway or what, but that's there. And then I've got the front of the bus where the driver and the passenger seat and everything will be. So that's the rough layout of the bus that I have planned for now, if you were curious about such things. I'm having trouble remembering those common questions that I've been asked about the bus. So how about this? You all ask me any questions you have about the bus down in the comments or email, etc. And then in a future video, if I'm not feeling well or whatever, and I just want to come out to the shop and talk and not do any work, I will answer those questions. Think of it as an AMA, because it is. But it's an AMA about the bus. So ask me any questions you have about the bus and I'll answer them in a future video. Let's do that. That's all I've got for today. I think that bus dungeon room is so poorly sealed that I was starting to get allergy symptoms again. It's supposed to rain for like the next 4 days, so hopefully that'll knock down the pollen a bit. If not, I'll just have to work wearing a respirator all day. It'll be annoying, but whatever. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow.